I was not expecting to see this from Toyota from the 2025 Japan Mobility Show, the new Corolla, and I think this is actually pretty close to production. It looks like it's been designed straight in a 3D software. Am I a fan of the design? Yes, actually I am. I think it looks pretty cool. Even though it's like this beautiful flow that we see in hand sketched lines, this does not look like a very comfortable vehicle, to sketch by hand because it's so angular everywhere, and it does not look like any Corolla from the past. They just went nuts, Toyota. They also have a bunch of different concepts that we're going to show you that was unveiled at the same show here. Very funky looking designs, for sure, for Toyota. It feels like this year's Japan Mobility Show, it feels like, I just have this feeling like the designers are starting to get their joy back in designing vehicles. It feels like a lot of cool experiments going on here. The new Lexus sports car is, by the way, gonna get a V8 as well, a brand new V8 from Toyota. Great to hear that. We're gonna jump in Photoshop because we're gonna compare this insane design for the Corolla to the previous generation, which I've always been a big fan of. I think this is a beautiful little sedan. The current Corolla has been out since 2018, so it is time for a refresh. But looking at the step here from this to this, it's a massive step in a completely brand new direction for Toyota. Before we jump in here in Photoshop, let's quickly just go through this Car Scoops article and let's see what we know about this vehicle so far. The new Corolla. So Toyota's new Corolla concept barely looks like a Corolla. I definitely agree with that. Sharp styling and overhauled interior. The interior, by the way, completely ruins everything about this vehicle. The interior just looks like I don't know what, but should I get used to that by now? Probably, but I'm not gonna stop complaining about these type of interiors that we have here. I'm gonna show you that in a minute. So I unveiled a new Corolla concept at the 2025 Japan Mobility Show. The sedan preview is the next chapter for one of the brand's best-selling and longest-standing nameplates. I don't know when the Corolla came out, maybe the late 60s, I think, or something like that. It was penned or designed by the company's European design center in Nice, France. It features crisp, modern lines and proportions more in tune with an electric vehicle. It definitely looks like an EV for sure. They're probably going to drop this as an EV as well. And I think it has more of a new, Lexus styling, the ES styling coming back here for the Corolla. Hinting at a new design direction for the familiar compact, a refined take on Toyota's hammerhead design with full-width LED headlights, merging horizontal and vertical lighting elements or signatures. Gone is the traditional grille, replaced by a narrow lower intake on the bumper, and you also have a subtle vent at the base of the windshield on the outside of the vehicle. It's pretty crazy. You can see the vent right here. We have some slots here underneath the windshield. Very static, robotic looking design, and I feel like that is where the majority of car companies are heading in this direction right now. It's a completely new era for car design with this chiseledness that we have going on, but it's still not a bad looking design. You still have some flow, for example, in the hood here, but the overall proportions with this laid back greenhouse, you see the sloping A-pillar here going back into a much more angled rear end here. It looks like the Prius roofline, which if you look at the Prius from our side view, it looks like an elephant sat on the A-pillar and just squished it down. It's almost too straight, and then it feels like, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in side view, because it has some car design details into that doesn't really follow the rule book of car design like I'm used to seeing, which is pretty interesting. This does not have this as bad of a roofline as the Prius. It still looks pretty good here. The rear end, of course, full light bar. Still that trend sticking around here, I guess. But overall, it's a pretty decent looking machine. And if this is the next Corolla, it's going to be pretty sick to see a bunch of these out on the roads, to be honest. You have a sleek four-door sedan that could carry forward the Corolla nameplate. The front fenders appear to host a charging port. You can see it right here. So it looks like we do have a charging port on the front fender. Where is it? Yeah, it's right here, I do believe, in this area. And then you have some lighting here as well. So this appears to be a hybrid setup or an EV. Other notable features include a descending window line. We talked about that. That's actually this line right here. So you have a much better visibility when you're sitting in the front driver's seats to see exactly where the front wheels are positioned. I do like that. Integrated ducktail spoiler in the rear, nice. Full-width taillights with pixel-like illumination. The dashboard in the interior has a clean design with modestly sized screens for a digital instruments cluster and the passenger display. You have a floating center console right here. This looks like a kitchen island to me, just sticking up from the floor in the interior. It does not look great, this interior. It's not an interior that I want to spend a lot of time in because it's just not a cozy interior. When I sit in the interior, I want to feel like the elements or the dash and the shoulder line right here for the door are sort of in my shoulder line here. I don't want to feel like I'm sitting on top of the vehicle, and I can see already looking at this interior, it feels like I'm sitting too high up. I have too much glass around me, and it doesn't give me this cozy feel that I want to have in pretty much every single car interior, unless I'm driving a minivan or something like that, where you have to sit a little bit higher up. But for a sedan like this, this interior, you have the climate settings here next to the steering wheel. It does just... So if I'm driving, I have to reach behind the steering wheel to fiddle around with the temperature and fan speed and stuff like that in pixels. It's not even dials and stuff like that. So it doesn't really make sense, this interior. And thankfully, of course, this interior is nowhere near production ready. So we're not going to see interiors like this. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe they go crazy and put this into production, but I doubt it. So it will offer a variety of powertrains, including fully electric and hybrid setups. There is no clear production date for this, but it is clear production intent for the Corolla concept. The automaker did not announce a date. Its successor could arrive in 2026, so next year, because the current one, as I said, has been around since 2018 with a facelift in 2022. Now, Toyota dropped some very, very cool concepts other than this in the Japan Mobility Show. You can see this one right here. Very, very funky looking thing. This is what I'm talking about when I say the designers must have had a lot of fun designing these small things. I don't know if this is some sort of autonomous vehicle. Probably, it looks like it. With some very almost toy-like design for this. Very crazy stuff. And also some sort of chair here. And we have this little Toyota LCV concept. It looks to be, almost like a warehouse machine or something like that, modular stuff. But it still has a very funky looking design. It's actually a beautiful looking design, this thing. I love the chamfers that goes around here and how the seats goes out like this. It's just a interesting looking design. And then you have the headlight unit sitting right here at daytime running lights inside of the glass. Pretty cool. And of course, we have the high-ace concept. This is also a very, very nice design. Love to see it. It looks like we have maybe a rooftop tent up top here, and with some very clean proportions. And I do like the graphics that goes on here. It looks very futuristic, but still very classic at the same time. Beautiful design by Toyota. So let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at this design here, the Corolla design that we're focusing on in this video. So I'm going to compare it to the current generation right here, which, as I said, I've always been a fan of this design, specifically the GR, the hatchback. It doesn't have to be the GR Corolla, but just the hatchback looks so good, specifically in the rear end. It, of course, has the same front end as the sedan right here. Always been a fan of the chiseledness that we have going on here, but at the same time, it retains the automotive vibe that we want to see in cars. We have this line here, for example, stuff like this, small details that makes it feel like it's still, hand sketched with some human elements in the design, and it doesn't look like this one was designed in a 3D software just to begin with. We also have this beautiful line in the hood right here coming down, connecting to the grille in the front end. Overall, just a stunning looking design. Like the daytime running lights right here with these 3 LEDs that we have going on here as well. Beautiful, beautiful design, and a lot of chamfers going on again in the front end. Now looking at the new one, compare the old one to the new, and you can see just how static and robotic, sharp, chiseled. I mean, it feels like it's almost a knife, sharp as a knife in the front end. We have a full light bar here in the front end with the new daytime running lights. This hammerhead design that we've seen in the Prius, for example, has been evolved here to be even more chiseled than what we have in the Prius. We do have a nice chamfer in the lower section, and just looking at this vehicle, it 100% feels like an EV to me, just looking at the proportions and over the styling of this vehicle. We have some nice looking wheels here as well, and we have, again, some lines in the hood that still has this human touch to it. And also this fender line right here with this curvature going down into the front end graphics. Looks like we have some very cool, probably indicator lights right there in the front end. And I don't know if it feels Toyota to me, just looking at this design. It could be pretty much any Japanese manufacturer, in my opinion. It doesn't really scream Toyota to me. But that is, of course, what happens when you do a radical design change in the design philosophy like we have right here. Now looking at the side view of the current Corolla, from the front end going all the way across in one single line and then dipping down into this graphics that I sketched out in the front view. Beautifully done. We have some nice lines in the lower section here as well. That doesn't really have a connection to what's going on in the rear end, but we do have the same line in the front coming back in the rear here. And the greenhouse and the proportions look very, very clean. Very nice proportions for the current Corolla. Even though it is a small sedan, it still has some very nice line flow all around it, making it feel like a little bit of a bigger sedan than what it actually is. Look at the new one. It becomes crazy with sharpness going on here. We have some new graphics. Of course, this is a very interesting detail in the lower section right here. How this carves out. It looks like this has been carved out of rock or stone or something like that. It just feels like someone took a hammer and a tool and just carved out some rock formations, and out came this new Corolla. Now looking at the greenhouse design, this is also why it looks like an EV, because look at how far the A-pillar goes. Stretches all the way into this area. It doesn't feel like we necessarily can fit an engine underneath the front end. And we also have this shoulder line right now. We have a muscle over the rear axle, which is very, very unusual to see a muscle defined like this for a Corolla. And then we have the belt line going down here in Ford F-150 style, creating a much better glass surface here. So if you sit in here, if you sit in the driver position, this additional piece of glass right here is going to give you better visibility where you're going, and you can see sort of more clearly where the front end or the front wheels are positioned. We have the charging port right here, some LEDs right here as well. The wheel design actually looks pretty decent to me. Thankfully, they're not completely black, so we can see what the design sort of looks like, even though most of the wheels are still pretty dark. We have some nice chamfers in the back as well. And this is stuff that's definitely trendy right now. Just having squared off vibes like this. We saw it in the new Audi concept. We saw it in the Jaguar concept as well. And a bunch of different cars just coming out with less radiuses and just static graphics like this. In this case, I feel it sort of suits this vehicle to have graphics like that, because the rest of the styling for this vehicle is just so chiseled. Now looking at the rear end of the current one, beautiful design, but this is probably not my favorite view for this Corolla. Unusual, I know, because usually most favorite view of most cars is going to be the three-quarter rear view. But in this case, I feel like it feels a little bit anonymous in the back. I definitely prefer the front end, which has this very confident look to it. Exhaust pipes visible here. We have a nice little diffuser island, diffuser diaper down there in the lower section, and a properly defined bumper as well. Looking at the new one, check this out. We have a nice little ducktail spoiler sticking up right here from the two-tone greenhouse. So the top of the greenhouse, or the top of the vehicle, is blacked out. Then we have the body color in the rest of the layout right here. We have a full light bar and super chiseled design with very sharp corners and edges and chamfers like this, which again doesn't necessarily look bad, but it would still be nice to have a little bit more fluidity in this design and not have it look so robotic like we have right here, even though it looks still pretty cool. Now looking at the interior last but not least, beautiful interior for the current Corolla, absolutely stunning. Look at the controls here. Gauge cluster housing right here, a little bit digital stuff here with an analog tachometer on the left side. Steering wheel looks beautiful as well, a couple of buttons here on the steering wheel, and then we have the infotainment screen sitting pretty high up. I would want to lower this a little bit further down, because now it's, as you can see, it sticks above the height of the dash. But if you're sitting with your head right here, it's probably not going to stick up too much. We're looking at it from a sort of lower angle here. So it's a beautiful looking interior with some nice, beautiful flowing lines in the interior here as well. And looking at the new one, this just completely ruins everything about this design for me, because this, again, it's just not an exciting interior. It's just so boring to look at. And we have a single floating screen, like in the middle of the dash. We have this kitchen island in the center portion with the drive selector here. Controls for the, as we talked about, the climate settings right here. Steering wheel looks decent. We have a, just slapped on a screen in the back, behind the steering wheel, with no thought of how they could integrate these screens better in the interior and have a nice housing for everything, so it feels like they're actually part of the interior. But it's what we see in all new cars today, essentially. 90% of new cars are going to have interiors like this. And I read a study that younger people today, they were actually preferring older cars because new cars are simply too boring. And I can clearly see why that is happening. New cars, they lack this personality that older cars had. So it's not just, older people that has a childhood connections to older cars that prefer older cars now. Even the younger generations are starting to appreciate what made the older cars so magical. But overall, Toyota has done a great job this year, the Japan Mobility Show for 2025, with some pretty cool concepts. And I honestly think that this is not very far away from what the next generation production Corolla is actually going to look like.